Hey friends, welcome. Friends, today we're gonna check what is sessions and we will try to understand the overall mechanism how to use session under JSP and servlet. And we're gonna code a very simple program in fact. But before starting with this particular lecture, let us understand that why we need a session. So if we talk about the communication between a web application and a web server, the protocol which is followed between these two is HTTP protocol. Now friends, this HTTP protocol is a stateless protocol. Means whenever a web application is communicating with a web server doesn't know that who is communicating with the web server. Means there is no unique identity is being kept by the web server. So for example, if we are creating a shopping cart application, then we must need a mechanism using which we can identify the exact user who is using the application. And here comes the session. Session is used to identify the specific users who is communicating with the web server. Now how a web server identify an unique user who is using a web application? Obviously session is the answer, but session is altogether a object and we need to identify each object uniquely, and there comes session ID. Now every session is being provided with a unique session ID, and this session ID is kept in a session pool. Now how this whole mechanism work, we need not to worry about that, because all the mechanism of session and pooling and keeping a track of each and every session ID, all these specific operations are automatically handled by Tomcat web server, so we need not to worry about it. So let us quickly code a very simple program in Eclipse IDE and let us check how easily we can create a web application which can uniquely identify the user. Now this particular web application would be very simple web application. In fact, I can show you guys what web application we are going to build, as we have this web application up and running, which I have already coded, but we will definitely code it from scratch. But let us check how we gonna code this web application. Let us execute the program. Here we go. So in this web application, we will enter a name and a session will be set. And in here we also have this info.jsp file. If the session is not set, then it will say hello user, and if we provide the name to this particular form, for example Chand, and submit the form, then automatically a session variable will be set, and if I refresh this page it will say hello Chand. But if I copy this from here and paste it in some other web browser, then definitely session variable will not be set, because session is unique for web browser and it will give us a different output. It will give us the output hello user. Let us do one more thing. Let us quickly check the URL of login. Here we go. And for example, in here the info.jsp file is showing hello Chand, but in Chrome we will create a yet another session which is altogether a different session. In here we will type in the name as maybe John and submit it, and it will show us logged in user John. And now if I navigate to info.jsp file, then it will give us altogether a different output hello John. So this is an application which is capable of handling session and identifying the user uniquely. So let us quickly create this web application from the scratch. For doing so, we would require one servlet first of all, and the name of the servlet could be sessions. Let us click on finish. All right, and let us also execute the program, run on server, and it will show us in fact some auto-generated code will get executed. So here is the output. We would require this particular part of the URL except the base URL. So let me copy this and let us quickly add one JSP file. This particular JSP file would be our login form. Not exactly login, because we are not accepting like the password. We are accepting only the username. So let us give the name as login.jsp, even though it is not exactly the login, and it will have a form, and the action would be URL for the servlet. Here we go. And in this form we will have a input field. Name of the input field would be name, and type would be text. Here we go. And we will add one quick label in here, and finally a submit button. Submit, and value equals submit, and let me execute the program. All right, let me add some text and submit this particular form. Everything looks perfect. All right, now we would be coding the servlet. Let me navigate to the servlet, and under this do get method we would be saving the session under a session name. And so for doing so, let us create an session object. So I will take help of http session class. Here we go. And the name of the object would be maybe session equals request dot get session. Here we go. And using this session variable, we would be set an attribute. So here is the set attribute method, and in this method we have two arguments. First argument would be the name of the session variable. We will name it as session name, and we will pass this the value received by the form, request dot get parameter, and we will pass name in here. Everything looks good. And finally in here we will display one message, require print writer out equals response dot get writer, and we will print out dot print ln, and inside this print ln we will print logged in. And let us also display the user name. Let me copy this from here and paste it in here. All right, everything looks fine. Let me execute the login.jsp file. So in here I will type in my name and click on submit, and it will say logged in Chand. All right, so now finally we will code a info.jsp file, and in this file we would be reading the session variable. By the way, this particular code which we have used in here, session.set attributes, session object is by default available to JSP, and in fact we have also checked built-in object in one of the lecture. So this particular code is also applicable in JSP file, and we can definitely handle session in JSP file as well. In fact, we're gonna read the session directly using the JSP file. So let me quickly create one new JSP file in here, and the name would be info.jsp. That's a good name. And in here we would be making use of scriptlet and create one string variable name, and we will initialize the string variable name by session dot get attribute name. So this is as simple as this. It is pretty simple, and I guess there is some kind of issue. Yes, we need to typecast the session as the attribute as in the form of object, so we need to cast it as a string. Here we go. So now everything seems good, and in here we will use a very short calculation. In here we will type in name, if name equals to blank, or name equals to null, then we will initialize name to user. Now this is not a very good way to handle string, but for demonstration purpose it is good enough. So in here we would be making use of expressions tag, and we will type in hello plus name, and obviously hello would be inside double quotes, which we missed. I suppose everything is perfect now. Let us execute the program once again and set the session variable. So let me now execute. Alright, so there is some kind of error. Let me check. We are getting the session variable name, and in here, alright, so the name is session name, not simply name. So this is the reason why we were not able to get it properly. Now everything should work properly. Here we go. So now everything is working properly. Let us execute the program perfectly once. So let me execute the program. Name, let us make it as steady easy, and submit. Now the session variable will reset, and now the info.jsp should show us hello steady easy. Perfect. And now if I navigate to a new browser window, so here we have executed this info.jsp, and the output is hello user, because the session variable for Chrome is not set, obviously. And in here we can type in login.jsp and hit enter. It will load the simple form, and in here let us give some different name, maybe Ron. Here we go. So the logged in Ron, so the user who is logged in is Ron. And now let us finally call the info.jsp again, so it should show hello Ron. So perfect. So our application is working perfectly, and this is the overview of session. Obviously, and the base of session is this, which we have already seen, but we can check session in a complex scenario where the web application is complex when compared to this very simple web application, and there we can deal with many other stuff. For example, the session is not a string, but it's a different kind of object. So those kind of scenario could be also checked. But to start with, this particular overview is good enough, I suppose. I hope I have made myself clear. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.